What if a man from the upper Paleolithic survived until the present day?
Hi, welcome to The Real Generation Gap. I'm Rudy Ruiz.
I'm Fred Zattilli.
And today we're going to be talking about the 2007 film, The Man from Earth. So let's say you're meeting with a bunch of buddies and one of them suddenly starts coming at you with this story about how they've been around for 14,000 years. They're a Cro-Magnon. How would you deal with that? And that's the question that's kind of posed to this group of friends in this film here. We get some professors, teachers. They go to their friend John Oldman's house to see him off. He's going to be moving away. And he starts to drop on them that, what if I was a caveman and I'm still alive, or a person was immortal, this and that. And we just get this amazing story for 97 minutes or 90 minutes, all set one location, one big group of people. And it is very compelling. Directed by, I think it was Richard Schenkman, and written by Jerome Bixby, who I'm not familiar with, but I know they wrote some Twilight Zone, wrote a lot of Star Trek original.
Yeah.
So clearly a big sci-fi writer. And this was their last screenplay, as I understand it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie, man. And, you know, this was a pick from you. This is the first time I've seen it. I mean, did you see this when it came out?
Yeah, I've been aware of it for a number of years. I've watched it multiple times with people. Like, this is, if somebody's coming over, it's like, let me show you this movie, you know? And the great part of it is that it's the ultimate low budget film. It basically takes place in one room. There's a few moments where they walk out to the truck or something. There's no actors. I mean, the most known actor is John Billingsley, who had a part in the Star Trek series.
Okay.
You know, everybody else, I had never heard of them and never seen them since. They might be known in the industry, probably. Yeah. I'm sure they have other credits.
I was actually going to say Tony Todd. He was the friend who was the most level-headed, who was like, let's just hear him out. Let's keep listening. Yeah. Tony Todd, Candyman, iconic in genre filmmaking, one of the great character actors. We're recording this on December 6th, and he actually passed away last month, November 6th, which was really unfortunate. He was great. I think he was only 68. So RIP Tony Todd, but he was probably my favorite, I think, character and
he was a gentleman
performance in the movie.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah,
he was the most human.
Yeah.
Like everybody else was a little
very
bit
open.
stilted.
Yeah, very open-minded, you know?
Yeah, which you should be. You know, and it was interesting to see the different characters. The one, since you're talking about him passing, I wasn't aware of that. So, you know.
Yeah.
But Bixby, the writer, he never got to see this, did he? He died before this?
Yeah, I was reading. He passed away in 1998, which is interesting. So I guess
that's a long time, from 98 to 2007.
Yeah.
They finally made the movie. And I think the movie was made flawlessly, even though it had some campy acting.
Yeah.
You know, the guy who came on the motorcycle, the professor with the young girl.
Yeah.
That was a stilted part.
He was another one. I forgot his name, but I looked him up. And did you ever see Carrie, the Brian De Palma, like Sissy Spacek Carrie?
Of course, yeah.
He's Tommy.
Her walking through the flames at the end with the blood. I mean, that's such an iconic scene. That's like burned in my memory.
The split screen with the red light. Yeah. But he's Tommy. He's the one that takes her to prom, who ends up getting the bucket falling on his head.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, he looks familiar. Who is this guy? And I was like, oh, that's Tommy from Carrie.
I love it that you know things like that. So anyway, yeah, what a proposition. Now, he has the perfect group for this. There's an art historian. There's a archaeologist. There's
biologist.
A religious fundamentalist.
Yeah.
Right? And he's going to confront these people. And I love it that he doesn't know anything because there wasn't knowledge yet.
Right.
So he says, my estimate is 14,000 years. It's give or take 1,000 years. He goes, for 5,000 years, I didn't know there was years. Like, I had no concept of, you know, I didn't know where I was on the planet. Like, I couldn't tell you, you know, well, I was in Afghanistan, I went to Iran, I was at the Euphrates or something. Like, it just was, there was land, there was water, there was animals we were eating. And he thought that everybody was stupid for dying because he didn't die. And then he thought he was a bad guy. He was bewitched or something because they didn't know, you know? And even the religions they were just tribal, weird, superstitious, like unknown. We would never even know what they thought or believed because there's no record.
Yeah, I like how they explored that. And they dive deeper into that, like in the last third or half of the movie. But he mentions that pretty early on, you know, when you're traveling to these different places and you see all these religions and they're all rooted in the same stories a lot of times and all that. I thought that was very interesting. And yeah, I just kept going east, and then I saw water. I saw
lots
ocean.
of languages.
Yeah.
Because I went everywhere. And then it was great for him because he realized he was the only one not dying. Maybe it took a couple generations to realize that. Right. And that people were casting him out because they thought he was the devil and stuff. They thought he was stealing their life force so that he could live, And he said that the nomadic life became the obvious choice. I move on. I move on. I'm still doing it.
Right.
I'm still doing it. So they said, look, you're a professor at the university. They're offering you all these high positions and you're leaving? And he said, have you noticed I haven't aged in 10 years? And the lady goes, yeah, all the women want to know your secret. And he said, no, they don't. He goes, I don't age ever.
Yeah.
And I don't even scar. They found it impossible to believe. They're doctors, right? These are people with PhDs. They say, well, this is impossible. This doesn't happen. And he says, but out of the giant soup of the universe, the amount of people that there are, it had to be that somebody had perfect regenerative ability. And it just one in a million. He even said, I think I met another guy who might have been this way, but I lost track of him, to make a long story short.
I do like that in the beginning when they were like, okay, we'll play your little game, and they're theorizing like, yeah, the biologist says that. Okay, what if maybe there was a person that...
All right, I'll play. All right. In science fiction terms, I would say perfect regeneration of the body's cells, especially in the vital organs. Actually, the human body appears designed to live about 190 years. Most of us just die of slow poisoning.
Maybe he did something right, something everybody else in history done wrong.
What, like eat the food, drink the water, and breathe the air?
And prior to modern times, those were pristine. We've extended our lifespan in a world that's not fit to live in.
You know what could happen? Yeah, the pancreas turns over cells every 24 hours, the stomach lining in 3 days, the entire body in 7 years, but the process falters. Waste accumulates, eventually proves fatal to function. Now, if a quirk in his immune system led to perfect detox, perfect renewal, then yeah, he could duck decay.
That's a secret we'd all love to have.
Would you really want to do that? Live 14,000 years?
Yeah,
that
each
point,
person tried to legitimize his claim, some more than others.
And every time they hit him with the question, he always had an answer. And it felt, again, very authentic. Like, I think a lesser writer would have neglected the whole aspect of like, yeah, there was no time. Like, we didn't have time. We didn't have it. He's like, it took
clocks.
me. He's like, yeah, I learned things as the human race learned it. And, I can't be like any further ahead than anybody else. It's like whoever is the best geniuses of our time. Yeah.
I'm just a guy who sees what people did and I go, oh, well, we do that now.
Yeah.
We go here now. We have that now. He said nobody can keep up with all the knowledge of mankind.
Yeah. And I love how they, they would try to stump him with, oh, well, what did this look like at this time? And he's like, I don't know. It was just land and mountains. And then all of a sudden it's buildings and it's unrecognizable. It's not the same. And the lady, I think it's Edith, is the very religious one. Well, where were you on 1842 AD? And all he says is, where were you on this date last year? And what were you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't even remember that. What do you want from me? And all of his answers were, what do you want from me? Mm-hmm. Did you know this or see that or whatever? Yeah, but at the time, we didn't know it was the bubonic plague. Everybody was just sick.
Yeah.
You survived things.
Yeah, that talk about, did you keep relics and everything? And it just would you keep this? Like, you don't know it's going to be
a relic or
anything. Like, you wouldn't keep any of that. Like, you don't know. It's just something. It's a tool. It's something we used, and that's that.
Right, well, the idea of a relic wouldn't occur to him literally probably till like the 18th century or something. Like, there were no antiques yet.
Yeah. At one point, he said, I actually have a doctorate in every single one of your professions, but he's like, my biology one, I got that in like 1894. He's like, obviously things have
everything is wrong
since then.
Everything we learned then was wrong.
He's like, so my knowledge is dated, so I'm still not any smarter than you are necessarily. But Yeah, I thought that was all very interesting. It was really compelling. Like I was mentioning before we recorded, I didn't quite know what I was getting into. I read the synopsis a little bit, yeah, and I'm like, okay,
that's the beauty of it.
Let's go, yeah. And I started it pretty late at night, like midnight. I was like, okay, I can either wake up really early and watch it or just stay up, and so I stayed up. And I was a little thrown off at first by the fact this is like camera nerd stuff, but it's shot on like mini DV, so it has like a different type of almost TV quality. And I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. Let's go. Nice little indie movie. And it really drew me in. The conversations where they were going, there was never a point to me where it became stagnant or like it plateaued. It kept moving up, and it maintained interest. For me, Tony Todd is the best actor in the group. And I'm actually glad, because I was really thinking, I'm like, oh, okay, it's going to be him. Well, let me tell you the story about this.
But he
and
didn't.
then
they had to pry everything out.
Yeah. And it doesn't go that way. Like I thought it was going to be a movie of, now we're going to jump to a flashback of him being, meeting the Buddha or whatever. And it's going to jump
Genghis Khan or something.
And I'm like, oh, here we go. It's going to like take us through history. And it never does that. And I love it for that. I love that it doesn't go that way. It's just them in the room. And the idea too, that he talks about how he was a Cro-Magnon man, right? And how they're in this room, they have their whiskey, eventually the
Johnny
furniture.
Green,
Johnny Walker Green.
Right.
Eventually the couches get taken away because he's donating it. And all they have is the fire. And the fact that it's literally them like sitting on the floor
around the fire.
Yeah,
the tribal.
Hearing all this
Hearing
stuff.
the story.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is how we
so
communicated
good.
10,000 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And he even said, I always had a fireplace everywhere I lived.
Yeah.
I always.
It's like a childhood thing. It makes me feel
That's
secure.
the relic.
Yeah.
That's the
Right.
remnant of his Stone Age origin.
Yeah.
And then they get to the heaviest part of the movie. Well, the first heavy part of the movie. And that is, there's a religious fundamentalist. There's a woman who believes in the King James Bible, and she believes that Jesus Christ is her Lord and Savior, and that God has dictated the Bible through men, and this is the Word of God unquestionably, and all this kind of stuff. And so he says that he traveled to India, and that he met the Buddha, and he learned how to slow down his heart rate and make almost simulated death, slow down his respiration. And he was so impressed with the Buddha that he came back to essentially to Israel, to, where he was essentially from. And he decided to start teaching like everybody should have peace and love and that kind of thing. And somebody said, did you meet Jesus? And that's when he went like, yeah, that whole Jesus thing, just it's not how it happened at all. Like, that, it wasn't, it's like, I just tried to like, there was no, she said, repeat the Sermon on the Mount or whatever. And he said, yeah, nobody wrote that down. I mean, it was ad hominem. I mean, extemporaneous at the time, right?
Yeah.
It was just something that I just said a bunch of stuff and everybody tried to remember it, and God only knows what they did. And he said there was a progression of names, where it went like to Yeshua.
That was really interesting.
And he's like, and then it ended up this. And the guy said, when did you decide to name yourself Jesus? He goes, I've always used John.
Yeah.
I've always, John, like when a Cro-Magnon, like John.
Yeah.
He goes, it
was always John, yeah.
And he goes, but they changed that and did that. And
What about the name Jesus? Did you pull that out of a hat?
I called myself John. I almost always do. As tales of resurrection spread, the name was confused with the Hebrew Yohanan, meaning God is gracious. My stay on earth was seen as divine proof of immortality. That led to God is salvation, or Hebrew Yeshua, which in translation became my proper name, changing to late Greek, Jesus, then to late Latin, Jesus, finally medieval Latin, Jesus. And it was a wonder to watch it all happen.
And you didn't claim to be the Son of God.
It began as a schoolhouse and ended as a temple. I said I had a master that was greater than myself. I never said he was my father. I wanted to teach what I learned. I never claimed to be king of the Jews. I never walked on water. I never raised the dead. I never spoke of divine except in the sense of human goodness on earth. No wise men came from the east to worship at a manger. I did do a little. healing with some Eastern medicine I'd learned. That's it.
And he said, yeah, I tried to, I tried to fight the Romans and the Romans won. And so I simulated death and finally they took me down. They said, well, let's see the nail. He goes, well, first of all, I don't scar, but second of all, they really didn't do that. It was just ropes.
Yeah.
But they, they made it.
Blood and nails are a little
they're
more exciting.
Sexier or something. Meanwhile, this woman is apoplectic because her entire faith is out the window.
Yeah, right.
Her everything she believed in is totally out the window. And he really sells it. He says, yeah, eventually I just had to walk all the way through into France or something because they were just going crazy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it to turn out this way, but they made a whole thing about it and they created all this stuff. And next thing you know, they had temples and priests and it was just a disaster. I'm sorry I ever got started.
Yeah.
She said, this can't, for her, when you have a belief that's that serious and deep, your life is ruined.
Yeah.
I mean, every single thing you ever did and the reason for it and everything is now silly. That was a point where the damage he was doing was so huge that something had to be done. Now, in the meantime, some of the characters, you mentioned the character, the black actor, right? He was the level-headed guy. He was like, well, let's go along. Let's pretend it's true. Now, John Billingsley, the guy who's Neelix on the Star Trek Voyager, at the end of the movie, he says, I'm going to go home. I'm going to watch Star Trek and straighten my head out. Did you catch that line?
Yeah.
And he was a great character to have at a party because this was a quintessential party. Yeah. There was a jackass who laughed at his own jokes that weren't funny. Yeah. And he persisted with that. And there's always that guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And then there was the bossy loudmouth who challenged you. He's coming on. He's taking you out. He's going to make a fool of you. He's going to expose your lies. And that. Well, at one point, that guy, and of course there's the lady. There are all these different characters, right? The young girl who came with the loudmouth guy, she was the perfect kid.
Yeah.
She was the kid in the story. She was like, hell's bells, let's swing with it. I don't know.
Whiskey?
Johnny Walker Green.
Oh, yes.
I thought of you with the Johnny Green because, I'm a Johnny Black guy, so it's, I know you're the drinks in a movie guy.
Yeah, yep.
So it's like, well, he's can appreciate this, right?
Yeah.
That's an expensive bottle.
Yeah, that's one of the
It's like a
top-
$200 bottle?
I think so. It's one of the top tier, like that and the blue.
Right, the
Or
blue
like
is a really good one,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I'm no expert whatsoever, but anyway, it was interesting to see those different characters. Well, the aggressive guy, the guy who shouted him down all the time and just demanded, you're lying. He decided to call a psychiatrist and have the psychiatrist come. And the psychiatrist was a real old guy who had a bitchin' 67 Eldorado. Did you see that car?
Yeah.
Anyway, and that guy is talking to him like a psychiatrist. So he's like, how long have you thought you were Jesus? How long have you thought? He says, these people who think they're Napoleon, they really think it,
Yeah.
Like he really thinks this. He's pathological, And so that guy did the analysis. The story a little out of sequence is at one point, he says, you're hurting these people way too much.
Right.
You have to tell them that you're just lying to them. Because the Christian woman was ready to go up on the cross herself.
Right.
And so he goes, oh, I just made all this up. I got the perfect guys, anthropologist, biologist, Christian fundamentalist.
Yeah, she called out the Van Gogh painting. She said that
he painted
I look
that.
like I haven't aged, He brought up the relics, so I just used all that to make up the
It
story.
was great that he found the one relic in a garage sale or something, right?
Yeah.
Where did you get this antique, like a stone axe thing?
Yeah.
Found it in a thrift shop. It was 25 cents. And the black guy kept that. He took it with him. Like he kept the relic. That was the souvenir of that event for him. At the end, he was still half in, half out.
Yeah.
So the star of the movie, the Neanderthal man, the Cro-Magnon man, he said, okay, look, I just made all this up. You can go back to your standard beliefs. You can live the life that you think and he does it in a very kind and beautiful way. He's not condescending. He doesn't make any caveat. He completely gives a wholehearted apology, which is hard to get from people. I'm sorry I did this. I was wrong to do this. I had fun with you. I didn't realize I was going to hurt you this way. It was a bad idea from the beginning. It's still a bad idea now. But guess what happens? He's got a girlfriend. She said, oh, what a quick little liar you are. She goes, I know you're the Cro-Magnon man. Like, I totally believe this. She goes, and that apology, that was baloney. She goes, I can't believe they bought it. They're PhDs, right? They can't see through this. The psychiatrist couldn't see through this, And she says, I love you. I'm going to stick with you. And he says, well, you can't, because in 10 years, you'll be 10 years older and I'll still be like this. In 20 years, this guy, imagine he must have had 1,000 descendants. So, I mean, he literally is a DNA chain of his own. Like he's a nation of his own, or a race of his own almost, right?
Yeah, right.
So she says, look, she says, my parents split up before I was born. My stepfather was gone in 3 years. He says, I can't give you eternity. She says, nobody can. Look how people treat each other. Look what they do. She says, I have an opportunity to be with a very unique person for a certain amount of time. It'll have to be enough. It'll have to be okay. Even though at the end it will still be bad for both of them. Right. But she's like, the end doesn't have to be today. Let's go. He says, like, I move on. And so she's sad, but the card isn't played yet. He's not gone. Right? So they're going through it. And then do you want to tell the second heavy twist?
Yeah. The psychiatrist is still there. Everyone's leaving. He's kind of lingering inside. And
well, he actually leaves and comes back.
Yeah. Early in the movie, he comes in and they start getting into it. He's deep diving and he brings up a lot of this. How does it feel? Do you get survivor's guilt by the fact that so many people have died?
Yeah, he knows all these
You're
psychiatric
here. Yeah.
survivor's guilt, right?
Yeah, really digging into them. And yeah, that's that first point where people are starting to get feelings hurt and all that. And this dude starts getting pretty jacked up about it, to the point where he pulls a gun on him. And I do have to say as well, he brings up more than once to John himself, but also when John's outside, he brings it up to the rest of the group. Well, who was your father? A lot of issues start with the father, at least in that time. Like now it would probably be the mother, but in that period, highly patriarchal. Who was your father? Do you know? And he's there was like a social father that we had, I guess, but I don't know. And he brings up the father thing a couple times, right? This is foreshadowing what we'll find out later. And he gets so wired up that he pulls a gun on John. Okay, so what happens if I shoot you right now? If I shoot you in the head, are you going to, are you going to walk away? Like, let's find out. Let's see what happens. So, everyone's clearly on edge. He gets upset, storms out. And then I'm going to call him Tommy, the guy from Carrie. He's the one who called the doctor in the first place to check on this dude. And this fool brings up, he's like, oh yeah, his wife died yesterday. Or last week.
The psychiatrist who is so angry.
Yeah, very recently. So he's going through it. And it's like,
mortality is a big deal for him.
Yeah. And
it's she had to die, but you're going to go on, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. And I just thought, I'm like, okay, why did you call this guy over if he's going through it right now, man? Like, you're inconsiderate.
Yeah, you push his button. Yeah.
But then John goes outside, apologizes to him, takes the gun. It wasn't loaded, which is not, and he's just like, I just can't do this. I got to clear my head. So he leaves for a while. Yeah, he comes back. He continues to engage in the conversation. But after everyone takes off and John is having the conversation with his girlfriend that you had just mentioned, we get this reveal when John is saying, I've gone under all these different names. When I was at Harvard, I did this and that. And the psychiatrist has a real, like, did you just say John T. Party? Like from Boston? And then he starts freaking out and having this breakdown because it turns out John was his father. Your mother's name was Nora.
Yeah, he tells him the dog's name.
The dog was Wolfie. I know you used to always be cool. He's like, she said you abandoned us, and why did you, all that stuff. And it made me think back to earlier. I was like, okay, that's why he also, for him, the father was like an important, something important because in his world, he was abandoned. Yeah.
Right.
And that's probably what led him on his whole trajectory, maybe as far as career and all that. Yeah. And it is mentioned also earlier in the movie that he has a heart condition. So this happens. He has a heart attack. He dies. John is just kind of like, well, yeah, that sucks. It's the first time I've ever seen a grown child of mine, die.
And how would that be possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all that time. But
that was the one part I have a little bit of a gripe with, or that I bumped on, is I felt that was way too rushed. It just kind of happened really fast. And you mentioned that it was a little overacted, which I agree with. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just kind of happens. I almost wish it didn't play out that way. Or if they did do that reveal, I just think it could have been done differently and really, I don't know, they could have enhanced that more. It just happened way too quickly. And he's like, okay, well, yeah, that sucks.
Right. As soon as he found out he died.
Yeah.
That's what killed him.
It was just kind of odd to me. That was the one bump I had for it, to be honest. But
yeah, Yeah, that could have been done better. The actor, the old man, the old psychiatrist, that his acting, when he was angry, his acting was good.
Yeah.
And I always say, yelling, I can yell. Like if you had a part where I'm really mad, I can be a convincing actor. It's the tender parts that are hard. It's the emotional, it's the, when you're retro, they're acting, some actors, you see them and they'll do like some heartfelt scene or something where you're totally sucked in. And that's when I know that like I'm not that good of an actor.
Yeah. Martin Landau says it really well. There's an old interview with him where he talks about, you can tell a bad actor when they're trying to do things, like trying to cry. He's like, that's not acting. He's like, in real life, people don't try to cry. They try to hide it. They try to hold back. That's the when people are like drunk, they're trying to hide it. They're trying to like not let that be known.
Yeah.
He's like, so it's being able to get to that point, but hold back. He's like, not just, I need to make tears happen and cry. It's like everything in life is us trying not to hit those emotions and trying to suppress them.
It's hard to fake begging.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's hard to, those are the ones. So yeah, so he did the angry scene just fine. But when it came to that highly emotional scene, like would you have hugged like, you think those two guys would have hugged each other? You know what I mean? Like, old man, you're my son.
Yeah.
I loved your mother.
And John does get a hold of him, but I think it would have been more almost aggressive or like, hey, wait, hold on. It would have been, I don't know. And
he obviously would have had issues.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think less like, the acting isn't that strong in that moment, but I think that's in third to the directing. The direction could have been better on that. They should like Schenkman or whatever should have had their finger on the pulse for that. And the writing in that moment, I think could have been something more, especially with everything.
Kind of a quick and dirty ending.
Yeah. Especially with everything that came before. I'm like, oh man, we're going to like, take the foot off the pedal right here. So my only bump. I think it's all of the above. Like the directing could have been stronger. The writing, all of it. Even the way John Oldman kind of reacts, I get it to an extent of like, okay, he's probably been through this to some degree before. He's been here for millenniums, Yeah.
But he stayed so even tempered throughout the entire movie. In the scene with the girlfriend and stuff, he wasn't like, oh baby, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you or something. It was like, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
This is what I do. You're one of an incredible stream of people like you, next.
Yeah.
He was just very methodical, very stoic. And it's from decades or centuries of training.
Yeah.
It's great when the guy goes, he's been around for 140 centuries. That was a jolt,
Oh, right. I'm a second degree black belt. He's like,
he took the second degree black belt to the ground.
Yeah. He's like, I've had a few hundred years.
I've been in a few fights.
Yeah.
And it was unimaginable that John Billingsley was a second degree black belt,
Yeah.
But then finally the end comes and he's going to drive away. His girl is there. She's quite beautiful. And she watches him begin to drive away. And then 50 feet down the driveway, he stops. And that's for her to make the decision. You know what you're getting into. You're an adult. Your eyes are wide open. Mm-hmm. Pass or play. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
You don't really know what she decides, But those kind of endings are cool. And it doesn't matter what she decided because the whole story was the whole story.
Yeah.
A great concept, excellent execution, super low budget. That's what I really liked about this is a filmmaker. You don't have to have lots of special effects if you have a great story.
Yeah.
There's a lot you don't need. If you have a truly interesting, I've written some books and I do a lot of writing. I've written some songs and stuff. And to write something that I could be that proud of, that I could, as a finished piece, and take a look at this unique story. The stories I write are unique. I don't just do like a rehash of, it's like, well, obviously that's just Robin Hood, or obviously that's the Wizard of Oz, or obviously, I try to think of a completely unique thing. And here was a guy who did. He was a good, the man from Earth. And I don't know if I think there may be a sequel or something, but there shouldn't be.
There is, I think 2015 or 2017.
Yeah.
And it's ranked pretty low. I was reading about it.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to
probably won't see it.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you got to see it. And I'm thrilled to hear that it held your attention after midnight.
Yeah.
Because it really does.
Yeah.
It's a great movie to see. Ratings wise, if we're at that point yet in the thing, I'm going with a 6. It was just a great story. It's a movie, so it needs to have all these other things to make it a great movie or something. You know, it's not The Godfather, right? It's not Rocky. It's not, but at the same time, for what it is, it's really perfect. So I love the movie. I'm glad you could see it. And my goal always is to turn everybody on to these unusual movies. And we always hope, Rudy and I always hope that you will put suggestions of movies that you want to that are unique, that you think no one's seen but you, that kind of thing. Put them in the comments below, and we'll take a look at them just the way you took a look at this. I'll take a look at what you recommend. I hope to find a hidden gem. How do you feel on the rating?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 6.5 for sure. I'm glad.
Just that much better. Huh?
I was teetering on the 7, but I'll say just 6.5. Definitely recommend it, everybody. I'm glad that you brought this up. I'm glad I saw it. I'll definitely watch it again soon. And yeah, I love a really good, there's not many of them, man, but I love a good solid one location hangout movie. Just a hangout, people talking, and
you almost feel like you are there.
Yeah.
Like if you had a fireplace.
You want to be in it. It's like listening to a podcast almost. You want to be in there. But yeah, definitely recommend it. It is, I think, really well written, besides the couple little bumps I had. For me, acting wise, I think Tony Todd stands high above the rest. I almost and not to put anyone down in this movie, because clearly it's still good. We're recommending it. It's pretty highly rated on IMDb. I think 7.8 stars, which is really up there, maybe even 8, I think.
They liked it more than we did.
So clearly a lot of people are into it. But I almost wonder, the script does the heavy lifting for sure. But I almost wonder if you got, I don't know, some of the best actors to do this movie.
Right. I need Spielberg to make this.
Yeah, man. He would be a good director pick, I think. Yeah.
Right.
Or like a Richard Linklater.
Because who's a better storyteller than him? Spielberg is really the storyteller, right? And with the camera.
Yeah.
And with the lighting and with all those things.
Yeah.
If those elements had been added.
Yeah, because that's right.
Who knows how cool this could be.
Yeah, even camera-wise, not too much in conveying information. It's all in the acting. So they definitely do well in that regard. I'm not putting anyone down. Tony Todd is amazing. But yeah, the script really does the heavy lifting for sure. Highly recommend, and thanks for bringing it to my attention.
Okay. Yep. Well, I hope you all watch it, and we'll see you in the next review.
Yep.